So hello, everybody. Hello again. So for the past few weeks, I have been discussing this Ajitasutta, but sometimes it's only one line from Ajitasutta and then many other suttas. So Ajitasutta is providing the framework, and using that, we are trying to understand this whole path because these students are quite wise people already. Because the Buddha's answers are very just, he gives not explanations. So we need all the other suttas to understand, things like he said in the last week's Dhamma talk, we were talking about, Ajita was asking, there are streams flowing everywhere. And how do you block them? What is their restraint? And how do you stop them? And we understood these streams to be craving and also the asavas, the outflowings. Yeah, how our mind flows out to the sensual world, to future existence and becoming, flows out with our views and flows out due to avijja delusion. Yeah, kamoga, bhavoga, dityoga, and avijja yoga was the last four. But anyway, so all these things we realize, craving, our desires is also what cause our suffering. Of course, at the time of desiring, we never think that's why we desire. We desire to be happy. We desire to be peaceful. We want to enjoy. So that's why we desire things. But with our desires come also in the same package our sufferings. At the very least, whatever we get, we cannot hold on to. We have to give it up at some point. They pass away, they change. And we can't control these things. So these students have already realized that the sensual world is a problem. So unlike the Brahmins of the earlier period, by the time the Buddha was coming into the world, it is the time when the Upanishads have started to come up. And that's a little bit different to the more ancient Brahmanical teachings, where it was more of ritual and sacrifice only. But closer to the time of the Buddha, there were many Brahmins who were also thinking, other ways to understand existence, other ways to find release, peace. So they were also engaged in, giving up home life, giving up sensuality, becoming celibate, even living in forest or in simple places, meditating, inquiring the mind, asking, reflecting, developing insight. This was not the case in the earlier period, but by this time, especially this group of students were very much into this thing, and they already have quite a lot of understanding. You can see it from the way they ask and articulate their questions. And because they already have some insights, some good practice, Buddha gives the answers in brief, the simple things that was blocking them, or simple, something, not simple, I mean, the thing that they need to know, but they were able to sort of expand it and understand it in detail. So in answer, how are the streams stopped? How are they restrained and blocked? Like completely stopped, like blocked, restrained, and stopped. So the Buddha's answer was they are blocked by mindfulness. And they are completely stopped by wisdom. It's interesting when deep meditation, samadhi was not mentioned here, right? Sense restraint was not mentioned here. No details were given about mindfulness. Just said like that, and that's it. Big question, right? How are they? How do we deal with all these desires and cravings and outflowings of the mind that takes us into suffering? Buddha's answer was just mindfulness, cultivate mindfulness and wisdom. So now it is our job to try and put the rest of the Buddha's teachings to understand this in deeper meaning. And there's endless teachings that we could get into. Yeah, so we could pretty much put the entire Sutta Pitaka inside of these teachings, but I'm not going to do that because the idea is to just inspire us with the teachings and keep doing that again and again. So the same teachings we'll have to listen many times over and over until we understand them, until we apply ourselves, until we start to have our own wisdom. So that is how these work. So last time I ended the class halfway through the last discourse in Majjhima Nikaya, mid-length discourses, which was 152. And I realized that every time I sort of never finish this discourse. I've done this quite a few times in these classes, but this time I thought maybe it is good to at least finish that, take the 3 stages. So in brief, to just remind, and also for anybody who hasn't listened to the other talks, so to make it complete in this Indriya Bhavana Sutta, or the development of faculties, which is Majjhima Nikaya middle-length discourses, Sutta number 152. The Buddha is discussing, talking to a Brahmin, and they are talking about the development of faculties. And the Brahmin student says that his teacher also teach development of the faculties. And the Buddha asks, how does your teacher teach this? And he says, they develop the eye by not seeing, ear by not listening, not hearing. So then the Buddha says, if that is the case, then the blind and the deaf would have developed faculties. At that, the Brahmin student went silent, got a bit embarrassed, and realized, yes, well, that seems right. So then he asks, and then the Buddha says, how the development of the faculties are done in the Buddha's dispensation. And he says, how it is done is through inclining the mind. At the first stage, it goes through 3 stages. So, development of the faculties for somebody who is not yet a stream winner, not an Aryan, like an ordinary worldling, like most of us. The next level is for somebody who is already a stream winner, Sotapanna, who is working towards the final liberation to becoming an Arahant. They are called a Seka, or a trainee. And the last stage is for an Arahant. They are not developing, their faculties are well developed, but they still have a practice that is just helpful for them to live peacefully. So the first stage for somebody who's as yet unenlightened is what we discussed last time. And there the Buddha was saying, whenever we have an experience of sight, yeah, whenever, and that based on that experience, either we have a pleasant experience or a painful experience or a neutral experience. So we recognize, okay, based on this experience of sight, such is my feeling. And what happens after for many people who doesn't have developed faculties is that we run along with the story. If it is a pleasant feeling, we proliferate into how can I keep this going, make it last longer, or if it ends, how can I have it again? Or, thinking about enjoying it and proliferating, indulging in the pleasant feeling. And if it was painful feeling, then we are worrying about when is it going to end? What can I do to get rid of it? How can I run away? How can I, not have this in the future? So again, we are going with that. And then sometimes anxiety, worry, that can happen. With pleasant feelings, desire can come up. With painful feelings, anger, worry can come up. And neutral feelings are generally forgotten or not noticed. Yeah, they are in the. So there could be really good opportunities to cultivating the path with neutral feelings, but we are quite dull and don't recognize them. There are many neutral good feelings in the day, but we don't pay any notice for them. But in any case, the Buddha says, so instead of, running after or running away or being deluded about these feelings, instead incline your mind to equanimity. Yeah. Etang santang, etang panitang, yadidang upekka is the Pali way. This is sublime, this is peaceful, and that is a mind that is equanimous, stable, well balanced. Yeah, it neither has pleasant feeling no painful feeling, even though it is neutral feeling. It is neutral feeling with wisdom, with full awareness, alertness. And this is supposed to be better feeling than pleasurable feeling. It's interesting. So inclining the mind. So in order to be able to do that, we need to have had some degree of peace. Of course, the highest development would require deep meditation up to the fourth jhana. But even then, even for anybody else, still, even whatever peaceful, quiet meditation you've had, mind becoming more silent, becoming more peaceful, energy, joy coming up based on the mind, and that we can still incline mind towards that instead of running after the pleasant or the painful or being deluded by the neutral. So this is how we bring the mind to balance, to unity, to chittassa ekaggata, to one peak of the mind, slowly. Yeah. So, and this training can be done outside of meditation, as in when you're having your daily life. It is not very profound, but it still brings good results. You understand a lot about life, about mind, and how we can come to much more stable states instead of like a yo-yo or like a pendulum going from one extreme to the other and getting exhausted through the day with all kinds of emotions, both positive and negative. We become able to train our mind to come to more stability. So the swing becomes less and less, and we become more steady and stable and more mental energy. And that in turn helps us to sit and meditate when we have that time to take that even deeper. So, of course, with the deep meditation, when we have this, and when we do this, it brings even more stronger results. And there, the Buddha also gave 5 similes, and it was a sight. Like once when your faculties are developed, you can do this so quickly. Like when you are, as a result of sight, if a pleasant feeling comes, just like a snap of a finger. No, it was not snap of, like blinking your eyes. Yeah, how quickly can you blink your eyes? Just as quickly you can shift your mind and bring it to equanimity instead of getting carried away with the pleasant feeling and proliferating. Just like a blink of an eye, when the painful feeling arises as a result of sight, you can bring it back to equanimity. That is when the faculties are cultivated, but you can see, you will be able to, even if not so quickly, reasonably fast at some point, rather than days and weeks of being under that emotion and suffering, you'll be able to reduce that time and bring it to, and at the end, it will be just as quick as a blink of an eye. And when you have unwholesome or any kind of feeling happening as a result of sound, just like a snap of a finger, just like that quickly you'll be able to bring your mind to steadiness. So the Buddha had like 5 or 6 different similes about the 6 sense doors. So I want to repeat that, otherwise we will never finish this sutta. So now I'm going into the next. So, and then the next part. And how Ananda is one a disciple in higher training. Seka, yeah, the Pali word. One who has entered upon the way. So who is a stream winner, yeah? Who's already on the stream, in the sense now being carried away into enlightenment. At the very most, they are only said to have 7 lifetimes. So not that long to go, maybe shorter. Here Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with the mind. There arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He is repelled, humiliated, disgusted by the agreeable that arose, by the disagreeable that arose, by both agreeable and disagreeable that arose. That is how one is a disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way. So these terms, repelled, humiliated, and disgusted sound not nice in English, right? This is attiyati, harayati, jigucchati. Yeah. So these are the terms, but it is not with like the negative connotation. This is the best I think English can do. But why this happened? This is kind of automatic. Yeah. This is like for somebody who has touched a flame like fire, who's burned, already has an experience of being burned by fire. Would you ever put your finger in fire again? Do you have to think about things before take your finger out? Instantly, right? Very quickly. If you even accidentally touch something hot, let alone a fire, even a hot kettle or a hot cup, you immediately retrieve your hand. Yeah, your hand is repelled. Yeah, it because you know it's harmful, it's bad, it's difficult, and all the perceptions, right perceptions, are now being cultivated because somebody who's already a stream winner, they have deep meditation, so they have already seen experiences for what they are. All experiences, whether pleasant, whether painful, whether neutral, they know what they are. I mean, not fully, that's why they're still not finished, and Arahant would know them properly. But somebody who's on higher training still have a good understanding. Their perceptions are now changing. Yeah, their perceptions are changing to understand all experiences, even the pleasant experience is still painful compared to enlightenment. They also have seen, because once you start getting into the jhana states, you sort of get a glimpse of nibbana, glimpse of the mind stilling. So for them, they can also say, etang santang, etang panitang, yadidang, sabba sankara samuto, sabbu padipati nisago, tanhakkayo, virago, nirodo, nibbana. So this is sublime, this is peaceful, and that is the stilling of all formations, ending of craving, yeah, fading away of desires, ending, like ceasing, everything becoming to cessation, giving up of all of your attachments, all of those things, and much better is Nibbana, much more peaceful, much more sublime when the mind has come into complete stillness. Yeah. So they can do that as well, because when they compare the mind to their deep meditative experiences, which is even higher sometimes than the equanimity that they were practicing, and now they have reasonably cultivated, quite developed faculties already. When touched by a sound, touched by a sight, touched by any form of these sensory experiences, their mind completely turns away from that. Yeah, turns away from that. Nibbida, disenchantment is happening. But very important to understand, it is not coming, even though these words like disgust, humiliated, repelled. It's not negative. It is kind of like that because you realize these are not nice. Yeah, whatever I've been fooled to believe all these pleasant things in the world, which are actually compared to ending of all of these things, is still disgusting, but it is not like the disgust we normally talk about in our day-to-day life. But it is still a form of being repelled by this. So this happens. They don't have to really think too much. It happens very quickly because that's the understanding. But we have to be very careful as practitioners. This is the what happens. This is not what they do. This is something that happens to somebody who's already a stream winner. But there are some people, when they go on retreat sometimes, after that, they can't really stand other people. Yeah, they have ill will and negativity when people are loud or other people are busy, when the world is, going on in the way the world goes on, they have a negative kind of really, and with ill will and negative it comes, they get irritated with that. And that's not good. This is not what we are talking here. Yeah, it comes with wisdom. This state, this atiyati harayati jiguchati, comes with wisdom, and therefore it does not have that underlying aversion, that second hindrance. It's not based on that. Yeah, it's still a turning away. It's still an understanding of the inferior qualities of all of these sensory experiences and inclining the mind towards enlightenment, towards extinguishment. Yeah, compared to extinguishment of what? All formations, yeah, all mind states, all mental constructs. Imagine for a moment all of them becoming still. Tanhakkayo, yeah, all of your cravings, all of your desires, sometimes which drives everybody nuts, yeah, all of that becoming still. All of your attachments, yeah, for everything, to people, to things, to yourself, everything, all of that coming to an end. All of these things, fading away and ceasing, coming to a complete end, extinguishment. Compared to that, sensory experience is disgusting, yeah. You get repelled. So this is how somebody who is a stream winner is cultivating or developing their faculties. And how Ananda is one, a noble one with developed faculties. Here, Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with the mind, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises in him both agreeable and disagreeable. So, this is now a noble disciple with developed faculty. So, talking about somebody who's done their job, finished with, yeah, they are a fully enlightened being. So, fully enlightened beings also experience the three kinds of feelings. Yeah, feeling, pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neutral feeling. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in unrepulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive and unrepulsive. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in what is, in that. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving repulsive in the unrepulsive and repulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in that. If he should wish, may I avoid both the repulsive and unrepulsive, abide in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. He abides in equanimity towards that mindfully and fully aware. That is how one is a noble one with developed faculties. So Ananda, the supreme development of faculties in the noble disciples, has been taught by me, the disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way has been taught by me, and the noble one with developed faculties has been taught by me. So here it is a very powerful thing, right? This is that particular sanya, particular sanya, right? This is that ability. So somebody who is fully enlightened, all the enlightened beings have one psychic ability. Not every enlightened being has psychic ability. We often hear, right, people being able to have all kinds of psychic abilities, fly through the sky, levitate, read minds, and do all sorts of things. But not all enlightened beings have that ability. They're fully enlightened. They've ended the journey. They're completely extinguished. But this is there is one psychic ability that is common to all enlightened beings, and this is this one, that they have mastery over their perceptions. Yeah, so it is with our perceptions that we concoct the flavor of our feeling. What happens is just contact, right? We make contact with eye. There is the eye. Eye is just like a camera. There's just the lens. Really, literally also it's a lens in the eye. And the form, what comes from the form is just the light. Light comes in. And then an image is formed. But it is the mind that then try to understand using perception what you have seen, and using previous experiences, memories, teachings, all kinds of views that you have taken up, concepts you have taken up, and perceptions that you have developed earlier, then proliferates into something. So for somebody, just this perceptual process is beautifully given in the Madhupindika Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 18. Yeah? And I just say it in Pali because for anybody who enjoys it in Pali, it's quite a beautiful sequence to remember. Yeah? Chakkuncha paticca rupe uppajjati chakku viññāna. Tinnang sangati passo. Passa paccaya vedana. Yang vedeti tang sanjanati. Yang sanjanati tang vitaketi. Yang vitaketi tang papancheti. So this is, in the words of the Buddha, the perceptual process. So what did I say in Pali? What did the Buddha say in Pali? In English, based on the eye and the forms, and you giving attention to is the contact happens. And the coming together of these three, when you give attention with the eye consciousness arises. So the eye, the form, and the eye consciousness, when they come together, it is called contact. You make contact. Based on this contact, a feeling arises. It's just a feeling. But whatever one feels, that one perceives, right? Whatever one feels, that one perceives. Whatever one perceives, one starts to think about. Whatever vitakket, yeah, whatever one thinks about falls into proliferation. This is this long-winded thinking about it based on greed, hatred, and delusion. Based on these unwholesome roots, the thinking starts to happen. That is when it's called proliferation. So the feeling is just a feeling, but whether it is perceived as pleasant or painful or neutral is also based on the perception that you concoct. And this is why we already have changed perceptions already. There are food that we hated as a child that we love as an adult, and other foods that we loved as a child, now we feel disgusted to eat it as an adult. Same with music, all kinds of things. Yeah, all our perceptions can change. The thing itself just remain the same. But it is because our perception has changed. What used to be pleasant has now become unpleasant, or what used to be unpleasant has now become pleasant, or it has become neutral, things like that. So it's all to do with the changing of our perceptions. Our perceptions are impermanent, they change. This whole part of practice is about cultivating perceptions that are more in line with right view, more in line with the way the world is, because a lot of our perceptions are rooted in wrong view, in the wrong understanding. Yeah. So the whole part, what we are doing is changing these perceptions. As our perceptions change and understanding perceptions, perception, the Buddha said, is a mirage. Yeah, it's just like a mirage. It's created. It's nothing really there. It's something made up of our mind. The thing itself is something, but what we think what it is that's the mirage. Yeah, it's not that there isn't anything. If you see a chair, there is a chair there. But your idea that you call it a chair, what is there is just elements, yeah, in a certain shape and form. But we have decided to call a chair, given it a purpose, a usage, where it should be, how it should be, how it should be made. All of these things are later, yeah, and all related to our perceptions. So one who is enlightened, fully enlightened, just understand all of these things. They just, if it is a person, just body parts, that's all. Just elements, that's all. The whole universe, everything is just various compositions of elements. Their true nature is understood, that there is no person, a self, nobody there, just conditions, yeah? Conditionality is understood. So then their perceptions are cleared. So because it is clear, they're now not in the hold, stronghold of our perceptions. Our perceptions have a very strong hold on us. Yeah, the way we perceive, that is how we, have desires and things like that. But once, that craving is gone, and the perceptions, you have the right, the correct kind of, not distorted. Our perceptions are called, they're distorted, yeah? Sanya vipallasa. So when they're corrected, then an enlightened being can perceive however they want to perceive. They can perceive a delicious ice cream as vomit, if they want to, or some vomit as ice cream. I know it's a terrible simile, but it gets the point across. Yeah, they understand it's just elements. For us, ice cream is very, very nice. Vomit is very disgusting. But for them, neither is there. They can perceive either way. They can perceive ice cream as delightful as well, or as vomit. Vomit also as repulsive and disgusting, or as pleasant, whichever way. Or instead of doing any one of those, they can incline their mind into equanimity, mindfulness, yeah, fully aware, There is just elements, a bunch of elements, that's all. With the purpose, they understand the purpose of elements. What is a car, what is a house, what is a person, word concepts, they use them, but they're not under their sway. It is the perception that sort of creates this mirage, and we get fooled by, and we believe these things and run after things that really in reality does not exist, fulfilling us in a way that we expect. This is the disappointments in our life. We have chased after so many things that did not satisfy us at the end. That is because precisely these things are unsubstantial, transient, made up, concocted mainly by our mind. Interesting reflections for you. Falling in love, getting angry and upset, worrying about things, becoming sad, grieving. All of these things is created by us, concocted by us, based on the views, concepts, and perceptions that we have built up. But when we have mastery over these things, we are not carried away by these forces. So quite nice, quite powerful. So they're not fooled. Yeah, they're not fooled. They're enlightened being. Understand world for what it is. Given up craving. There is no sense of self inside. Just a bunch of phenomena. That's the understanding that's passing through. So quite beautiful. So this is somebody with the developed faculties, and our job is to gently, gently do the practice. So little things, it's always little things. But if you continue to do this, perseverance, persistence and perseverance, do it every time, all the day, as much as possible, then there will be change. Yeah, you will notice after months, after years, how much you have changed. Some of you already experienced this. This has already happened to you. You know this. So that is the what the Buddha said. And the Buddha's last thing is really beautiful. He says, what should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them? That I have done for you, Ananda. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, Ananda, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instructions to you. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So quite beautiful the way the Buddha gives discourses out of compassion for all of us. He brings out these beautiful ways, tools, how to cultivate our mind. So this is how we can use mindfulness. And what happens is as you use mindfulness, wisdom grows. Yeah, this is how it is. So this is how mindfulness first blocks, in the sense you don't get carried away now in the early stages. And then you come to like deep meditation and you come to understanding. So things are completely stopped by wisdom. But today, the main topic, because I can go on forever talking about cultivation of mindfulness, but instead I will now do a little bit of time, get started with the wisdom aspect. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a sutta from Anguttara Nikaya, which is Numerical Discourses, chapter 5, sutta number 57. No, sorry, chapter 5 to sutta number 25, which is called Assisted. Yeah. Here, it's a very short sutta, just a reminder of what these things are. Because when right view is assisted by 5 factors, it has liberation of mind as its fruit. liberation of mind as its fruit and benefit. It has liberation by wisdom as its fruit. Liberation by wisdom as its fruit and benefit. What 5? Here, right view is assisted by virtue, virtuous behavior, learning, discussion, calm, and insight. So, virtue is sila, learning is sutta, discussion, sakaccha, calm is samatha, is insight is vipassana. Yeah, so these 5 things, when right view is assisted by these 5 factors, it has liberation of the mind as its fruit, liberation of mind as its benefit. Yeah, so this is what we want to get to, right? This is how everything is completely stopped. So in order to do that, then right view is very essential. So right view, what is right view? I'm not going to go into details about the definition of right view, but right view is the insight of the Buddha. This is what he woken up into. He was awakened into right view at the night of his enlightenment. He describes this like, a chicken inside the egg. And it's so dark, dark of delusion. And one day, with its beak, it's, work hard and breaks the egg and comes out into, and it sees. So he describes the enlightenment like this. This is the waking up into right view, understanding world for what it is, seeing things clearly, what's going on. And all of his teachings, all of the teachings are based on these right views, right? So right view is what we listen and learn all this time by listening to Dhamma talks, by reading the suttas. It is nothing but right view we are trying to understand. So in the beginning, we don't really understand, right? We just take this right view on faith. This is why confidence in the Buddha and his enlightenment and his understanding is important. So the confidence of faith in Buddhism is very different. It is just taking on board the teaching, just like how we take on board the teachings given to us at school. When you go to school or to university, to a workshop, to anything, you go and you listen and take on board what the presenter says. Right? You have to have some level of confidence to take it on board, and then you apply it. And as you apply it, then you have your own experience. So right view is like a seed, right? It's like the seed that the Buddha has given us, a beautiful seeds, a whole bag of seeds, a variety of seeds are being given, and we have taken it out of confidence in the Buddha. And he gives the instructions for each seed, right? This kind of seed needs this particular kind of soil, this kind of nutriments, this much of water, this much of shade, this much of light, this much of care, and it will grow into a beautiful plant, blossom into beautiful flowers, and bear fruit of this kind. So like that, there is a whole heap of right views that we have been offered through these beautiful teachings. And also Buddha's instruction on how to cultivate them, how to cultivate and develop. Just now, even this Indriya Bhavana Sutta was like that, how to cultivate, how to build up, one method of building up a particular kind of tree which will bear fruit. We don't have to cultivate all of them, right? But because people are different, they will take different avenues, but will reach the same place. But right view is like the seed. We need that. But then we have the seed, the teachings, the basic teachings, basic understandings, which was the Buddha's understanding. as we grow, as we cultivate, so this is the path of building up mindfulness, building up stillness through meditation, and doing the reflections, yeah, doing all of these things, then slowly wisdom grows within us and we have our own insight. We experience it as our own insight, just the same insights that the Buddha experienced himself. We too experience. That is when we have our own wisdom. And it is this wisdom that is the cooling agent, yeah, cooling all of the defilements, all of the sufferings, all of the problems. Buddha often says, the sensual world, all these things are based on the sensual world, are like on fire, like burning. Yeah, all of these desires, the tanha, the craving, it's all burning. But the cooling comes from wisdom, cultivation of wisdom. So all of that streams that were flowing, yeah, is completely evaporated through wisdom. The stickiness of the craving is ended through wisdom. So, in order to cultivate this wisdom, then we can get an understanding what do we need to cultivate. So, assisted, this sutta is called. So, right view. So, this is why we listen to Dhamma talks. This is why we read and study the suttas, the teachings of the Buddha. And then just the right view itself isn't enough. So in order to, when the right view is assisted, yeah, combined with virtue, combined with learning, further learning, combined with discussion, yeah, combined with deep meditation, stillness meditation, combined with insight, vipassana, investigation, when it is done with this, assisted by these 5 factors, then liberation will happen. So this gives a really, in a brief way, what is to be cultivated. So virtue, learning, discussion, calm, and insight. Yeah, these are 5 things to remember. So then I'm going on to another very beautiful sutta, sutta after sutta. I hope you like suttas. Otherwise, we are in trouble. We're not in trouble, actually. But anyway, these are for sutta lovers. So this next sutta is from, again, Numerical Discourses. This book of 8, sutta number 2. And that sutta's name is called in English Wisdom, but its Pali name is actually very profound. Pali name is Adi Brahmacharya Panya Sutta. Long name, one word in English. And it's about the type of wisdom that you need to cultivate in order to have the liberating knowledges, yeah, in order to have these liberating insights to end all suffering. What are the conducive things that help you to cultivate such kind of wisdom? Because this is what we need, right? So this is what we need to hear. The wisdom itself, by just learning, doesn't come. By learning, all what we get is right view, just the seed. So in order to bring that seed into, make it to a tree, to fruit, and have our own wisdom, so these are the things. So this is in the book of 8. So that means there will be 8 things. In the earlier one, we spoke about 5 things. When the right view is assisted by 5 things, that is very helpful. But in this one, those you might also see, and there will be other things. Yeah, so the Buddha's way of teaching is depending on the audience, depending on the person, depending on the level of their faculties, the level of the wisdom they already have, level of their practice. Then he would say in slightly different angles, with slightly different combinations. right? So that's why you might see, but you might also see actually quite a lot of them are included. Yes, in some they're more expanded, some they're more contracted, but they're there. But for us, for our understanding to become wider and broader, it is helpful to know more and more of these suttas. And there's plenty more, but for this explaining and expanding on the Ajitasuttas, into Ajita, the Buddha only says they're stopped by wisdom and that's it. So Ajita has to figure out, or he probably already knows what he needs to do in order to cultivate wisdom. But as for everybody else, so we have to now go looking for other teachings, which is what we are doing. So I noticed the time, it's already 8:20, so I might only get started with one or two or three things. At least for this session, I must just try and read it out in full and see what happens, because some of it is not so hard to understand. Yeah. Because these are the 8 causes and conditions that lead to obtaining the wisdom fundamental to the spiritual life. When it has not been obtained and to its when it has not been obtained and to its increased maturation and fulfillment by development after it has been obtained. What 8? I was confused. But anyway, these are the 8 things that are very fundamental for the wisdom, for the spiritual life, to live the spiritual life and obtain its fruits, in brief. Here, a bhikkhu lives in dependence on a teacher or a certain fellow monk in the position of a teacher, toward whom he has set up a keen sense of moral shame, moral dread, affection, and reverence. This is the first cause of condition that leads to obtaining the wisdom fundamental to the spiritual life. When it has not been obtained and it is, so this is the first cause, yeah. I gave a very detailed Dhamma talk a little earlier this year about how to find a good teacher. Yeah, so this is about it. And there we spoke about the Chunky Sutta, another sutta in the Middle Length Discourses. And the way that how you approach a teacher is very important. Somebody who you have respect towards, because otherwise you won't listen, right? Anybody you don't have any respect, you won't listen to anything, right? Anybody that you listen to is somebody that you have some respect. So it's important that you have respect towards your teacher, but also some form of affection. This is not the unwholesome kind of affection. This is like metta, right? A form of friendliness and affection, good feeling towards the teacher. Not hate, not ill will, not negativity, not waiting there to argue or anything like this. But yeah, you can ask questions. But you have this idea of affection. Who you have this moral shame and moral fear in the sense that who you behave in the right way towards your teacher. This kind of conduct, this kind of interaction between a teacher is really necessary. Otherwise, we can't benefit from the teachings, because this is where the teachings of the Buddha gets to you, right? In the time of the Buddha, it was hard. These days, your teacher could also be a book or the YouTube. But at the time of the Buddha, it was really necessary to have a teacher. And it is always helpful also to have a guide, a teacher who will teach the Buddha's word. So that's the first factor. The second one is, as he is living in dependence on the teacher or on a certain fellow monk in the position of a teacher, toward whom he has set up a keen sense of moral shame and moral dread, affection and reverence, he approaches him from time to time and inquires, "How is this, Bhante? What is the meaning of this?" Those venerable ones then disclose to him what has not been disclosed, clear up what is obscure. and dispels his perplexity about numerous perplexing points. So this is the second cause and condition that leads to obtaining the wisdom fundamental to spiritual life. So this is why it is important to ask questions, yeah, after having reflected on the teachings, after having practiced, and if you have some uncertainties, difficulties to understand something, then it is important that you approach them, talk. So this is part of that discussion. It could be with your friends who are practitioners that you can have that discussions, Dhammasakaccha, or you can have the discussion also with your teacher. So discussion, which we heard in the previous sutta, is here too, questions and answers is a helpful course to grow in wisdom. So don't be shy to ask questions. With that, I will stop for today and open up for questions. Let's see who wants to build up the wisdom that is necessary for living the spiritual life, because the second factor says it is important to ask questions. So, any questions from anybody? Hello, Taranga.
Just wanted to ask, how do we develop like equanimity in day-to-day life when you're having like normal day-to-day activities like talking to people, having conversations, and that is, do you have any
Yes, yes,
examples?
yes, yes, yes. It's a
Okay.
big topic. I think I have given talk in the past, but I can repeat again. So, of course, here the Buddha is really talking about the equanimity is a very high mind state, yeah, fourth jhana. Yeah, so this is not what you are asking. You're asking really to have a more stable mind, a mind that doesn't swing with emotions this way and that way, but rather how not to get so affected by what you see, what you hear. Is that right? So
Yes,
it's
that's right.
also a form of stability, and you still have to develop perception. So it is done through cultivating certain perceptions. Yeah. So there are multiple ways you can do this. But one of the things that I will share for now, with the few minutes that we have for Q&A, is something that I also do often, which is very beautiful. And once you cultivate that, and this is what it is. So our life, our day-to-day life, it is like a river after a big flood, like after it's like really flowing very fast. It's very dirty. There are lots of currents. You can see bicycles, dogs, trees, doors, everything floating on it, right? It's a mess because it has been after a big flood, and everything is now floating like this. This is the chaotic life. This is the life that we live. But in this river, there is a very stable rock, big rock. Yeah. So the rock just stays there. Water goes around it, all the bicycles, the trees, everything else that is floating goes around it, but the rock remains stable. So then you are on top of that rock, also stable, and just seeing what's going around. When you see a dog floating, you want to go out, jump into the water, and retrieve the dog back because you want to save. Or you see something else and you get worried. You might see a snake coming towards you and you get frightened. Right? This is the thing. Whatever you see, based on seeing, or you might hear a little child crying. But you understand at this time, the current is so heavy. If you try to go out, you are also going to get carried away. You are not going to be able to help anybody at that point because it's too strong. This is how life is sometimes. In other places, the Buddha actually gives a simile. If you are already drowning, like in quicksand or in kind of a bog or on a whirlpool or something like this, You can't give a hand and help and pull out somebody who is also sinking, right? Then you will both go down faster as well. So this is the thing, this is that understanding. So when you know, okay, what I can and can't do, this requires a lot of wisdom, building up a wisdom around day-to-day activities, understanding people, understanding situation, understanding yourself. So this is doesn't happen like pushing a button. This is why we cultivate this whole path slowly, slowly. Yeah. So this is required for that stability to come in. But that's a beautiful perception, yeah, that you're sitting there with understanding, waiting patiently. That's one thing, but this is more helpful once you already have quite a bit of wisdom. And other times is to reflect the conditionality, yeah, reflecting on the conditionality of things. Why things are the way they are, why people are the way they are, why is it raining today, why is it whatever today. Yeah, you understand causes and conditions. The more and more you understand cause and conditions, also you're able to accept things. Yeah, so this is the power of understanding, power of wisdom. Another way to bring equanimity into your life is understanding the karmic consequences of things. Yeah, sometimes understanding what is right here. Not everything that you experience is karma, by the way, so this is very important. But some parts of it could be related to past karma, either karma that is just quite immediate, or what happened in some time ago in this life, or in previous lives. So not to, the thing is not to worry about why, what did I do? That's not useful now. It's already done. Karma is what already done. Vipaka is what's in front of you. But the thing is to understand, how can I learn and grow from this situation? If you have an attitude, changing of attitude is very helpful to bring your mind to stability. So, whatever difficult situation, if you have the attitude, okay, never mind, this is difficult, this is hard to bear. Okay, it's in front of me right now for whatever reason. Could be my karma, could be something else, but how can I grow from it? How can I make the best use of this? And you have to just start applying yourself, yeah, to each situation. Start with the ones that are a bit easier, that repeats a lot more in your life. So you have more information about these things. So you can, at a time when your mind is more peaceful, explore them, reflect on them, then you will get a better understanding. But it is important that you do it when your mind is peaceful. When your mind is in that emotion, if you reflect on it, you get a distorted understanding of it. So that is not correct. So, not at the time, it's pre preparation for the repeated events in your life. So, start with the more easier ones and more repeated ones, and then you can slowly build up. And you will see slowly you're going to build up enough wisdom about your day-to-day activities and come to stability, like things that agitates you, things that brings you like a shock, gets shaken, will not shake you anymore, because you are building up that ability with wisdom. Again, it's still with wisdom, but a level of wisdom. So the more you grow in wisdom, the more real equanimity will come to you. But in the meantime, you do what you can. Does it make sense? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.